Hello and welcome to this next module where we're going to be going through the Prince2 Plans theme. Now, plans form the backbone of any project, purely and simply because without a plan in place, there simply can be no baseline against which to assess the progress of the project. This module builds on the foundation knowledge, so it's been designed, taking into consideration that you have already completed the foundation level course and that your knowledge is up to scratch. If you did that some time ago, it may be worth reviewing the foundation module if you've still got access to it. If you haven't, then at least review chapter 9 alongside the foundation syllabus and ensure that those foundation learning objectives or those foundation learning outcomes are well understood. Again, we're going to do a key concept recap before we look at the management products associated with the theme and, importantly, the roles and responsibilities that lead or that relate to plans. Now, you'll remember we've discussed previously the planning horizon. This is something that you have to really understand in terms of the different types of plans and levels. So the planning horizon is the time distance into the future where you are able to plan accurately. The more uncertain the environment, the higher level of risk associated, the more difficult it is to plan accurately further into the future. So the uncertainty about the detail of future work, the changing environments, any number of risks which could change the project context, difficulty in predicting resource availability and business conditions will be typical sort of circumstances that reduce the planning horizon, which make it much more difficult to plan further into the future. To compensate this or to deal with the varying planning horizon, Prince2 recommends different levels of plan. Now, essentially these three levels of plan are the project plan, the stage plan, and the optional level of the team plan. Each of those different levels of plan can be prepared to a different level of detail. Now, a project plan covers a much longer period of time, but the amount of detail in the plan is commensurate with the fact that it extends further into the future than the planning horizon allows. And so one tends to find that project plans can be much more likely to need to be changed more regularly than a team plan, for example. Stage plans, obviously, we're only planning from the current point in time to the end of the current stage. And the length of the stage, for example, will typically try, it's one of the main considerations of how long a stage can be, is the planning horizon. Well, how much of the stage can we plan to any level of detail? So you've got to have a grip on this whole planning horizons thing. You've got to understand why it is that we have these different levels of plan. It's to make sure that our planning is accurate and to give every level of management an appropriate amount of information that suits them. So, yes, determining the number of stages in a project obviously can be determined by the planning horizons. Now, the use of stages in any project is, of course, mandatory. We know that there will be a minimum of 2 stages in any project, and that would be at least 1 stage of planning and 1 stage of project execution. Now, getting those stages correct, getting those stage boundaries correct allows optimal control. Now, typically those stage boundaries will align with the major points of expenditure, with the delivery of major products and milestone achievements. Now, we've spoken as well about exception plans, and you'll notice when I discussed the 3 different levels of plan there, the project, stage, and team plans, that we didn't include exception plan. An exception plan is not a different level of plan. Exception plans are rather prepared to the same level of detail as the plan that they are designed to replace. So if there's been a stage level exception and the board have requested an exception plan, the exception plan will obviously be prepared to the same level of detail as the stage plan it's replacing. And an exception plan, we understand, is only called an exception plan from the time that it is produced until the time it's approved. Once it's approved, it simply becomes the plan it was designed to replace. It becomes the stage plan, for example, or could be the project plan if that is what it's replacing. Now, Prince2 has a recommended approach to planning. Let's have a quick look at that. Okay, so that's the Prince2 approach to planning there. Now, I'd like to just spend a little more time looking at this defining and analyzing the products step, which is that second step in this approach here. And we know that Prince2 recommends a technique in order to carry this step out. So defining and analyzing the products, in order to do that, we can use a technique that is described obviously in the chapter, but you'll also find in Appendix D of the manual a sort of working example of the product-based planning technique, which is the technique that we use to define and analyze the products. And essentially a simple technique that works very well. We're going to go through the 4 steps of the technique now, and we'll have a look at each of the products that gets created as we go along the way. So the first step of product-based planning is to create the project product description. Now, you'll know that that was originally created in the starting up a project process. It's refined during the initiating a project process by the project manager. It forms part of initially the project brief and then the project initiation documentation. And it's reviewed at stage boundaries as well. But if we were planning a project, for example, then we're creating a project plan, which means that the project plan will include the project product description. So this is a 4-step sort of technique if it's a project plan. If it's a stage plan that's being created, then there's no need to create the project product description. We simply would carry on with the remaining 3 steps in this technique. So let's assume it's a project plan, and we will be creating the project product description. So let's have a look at Appendix D. You're going to be looking at Table D1. This is an actual example of the project product description for this held conference. Take some time, though, before we go into it, to just read the little scenario there. It's only half a page. Take a couple of minutes, just read that scenario in Appendix D so you know the story behind the project. And then let's have a look at this project product description itself. Okay, so this then is the project product description for this conference. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. Spend some time, if you can, going through it, but let's just point out some of the key important things. You remember the composition field of the project product description. That describes the major products that the project will deliver. Those are the parts of the project's product. So it told us there we've got a conference venue, the booked venue, we've got the attendees, we've got the speakers, publicity arrangements, delegate handouts, conference logistics, and so on. So those are the major products to be delivered by the project. The derivation items, this is the information that the project's product is derived from. So the selected subject matter, the agreed date, the email list, and so on. These are the inputs, if you want. We've got development skills required. That'll be our marketing people, conference arrangers, and so on and so on. Let's have a look, though, at the important stuff here. This is the customer's quality expectations. So you'll see they prioritized. They've used a Moscow prioritization technique. We've got the must-haves and the should-haves. So let's have a look at the customer's quality expectations here. Now, we'll pick a couple and look at them. And the point I want to make is I want you to see that for every expectation, there's an associated criteria that shows that that expectation has been met. So the conference must be professional in style, funded by the attendees, and address the needs of a range of members. The expectation there is satisfied by the criteria that the cost of the conference must be covered by the attendance fees. The conference must generate repeat attendance at future events by satisfied members. So we've got a criteria here that says the attendees' satisfaction survey indicates that more than 75% will attend next year's conference. Look at one more. The conference will be interactive in style. More than 50% of the presentations are interactive tutorials rather than lectures. So there you can see that we've created the project product description. We've captured those customers' quality expectations, and for each quality expectation there is an associated quality criteria that will be easy at the end of the conference to determine whether or not we met the appropriate expectation the customer had in terms of quality. So that's step 1 of the product-based planning technique done. We've now got a project product description. The second step in this technique is to create what we call a product breakdown structure. Now, if you are following the manual, you can flick over the page, have a look at figure D1 now. This is the product breakdown structure for the conference. And effectively what you'll see at the top is we've got our conference, that's our project's product. We always read breakdown structures from top to bottom. So the top here, we've got the product, we've got the held conference, that's the project's product. And then you'll see we've got these groups or these headings. And underneath each of these headings, we've defined all of the products that would need to be delivered within that category. So let's just go through this diagram very quickly. If we look under the venue, for example, you'll see we've got the venue requirements. And they're all itemized. So we've got 1.1 is the venue requirements. We've got 1.2, which is the candidate venues. 1.3 are the venue assessments. And 1.4 is the selected and booked venue. We can continue that along. You can see under publicity, we've got the bulk email, the press release. Under the delegate handouts, we've got the covers, the printed agenda, slides and notes, satisfaction survey form, and so on and so forth. Now, you'll notice that the bulk of these are in squares. So there are a number of products here shown in circles, and those are the external products. Remember that we identify when we're creating product breakdown structures, external products. Those are products which are created outside the scope of the plan we are looking at. So, for example, the email responses, the responses to our bulk email, we have no control over those. We're not creating them as part of this project. We're waiting for them to come in from externally, or they come in from the external environment. And to that extent, we have no control over it. It's an external product. Now, we identify external products, really largely speaking, because of the implication they have on risk. Because with every external product comes an element of risk. What happens if it's wrong? What happens if it doesn't get delivered on time? What happens if it's inadequate in terms of quality? We've got no control over it. So each external product should create an associated risk register entry. So there we have the diagram, and effectively this is a hierarchy. Okay, there's no order implied. We can't see from this diagram what we should do first. We simply can see all of the products that we need to create. So if we create every one of these products in some order, in some sequence, and combine them together in some particular fashion, we should end up with a held conference. But what we have done successfully is pretty much defined the scope of the project. As long as we deliver each of these scope items according to agreed specification, then we will ultimately deliver the conference. And that's called a product breakdown structure. You may or may not, in your own experience, have come across a work breakdown structure. And this is not dissimilar to a work breakdown structure, except that, in a work breakdown structure, it says paint the walls. And in a product breakdown structure, it says create a painted wall. So we're looking at that. Remember, Prince 2's focus on products principle relates. So that is a product breakdown structure. That's step 2 of product-based planning done. Now, for each of these identified products, we would create now a product description. So step 3 is to create the product descriptions. So as part of creating the plan, remember, whenever we create a plan, we create product descriptions. So for each identified product here now, we create an associated product description. Figure D.3 here shows us an actual product description. Let's have a quick look at that one. So this is the product description then for products. You can see conference is the project, item 4.1 is the reference that comes from the product breakdown structure, and this is version 1.0. So this is the product description identifier. The title, this is the bulk email. Purpose, the bulk email is the primary means of advertising the conference, and so on and so forth. Composition, what it's comprised of, what it's derived from, the format and presentation. This is the standard product description template. Obviously, it's an email. Development skills required. These are the marketing resources, knowledge of conferencing, and so on and so forth. The important bit, or the value of any product description, of course, lies in the quality information. So obviously, you see we've got our quality responsibilities, the producer, reviewers, and approvers. And then we've got a tabled version here of the 4 quality headings of the quality criteria, quality tolerance, quality method, and quality skills required. Now, I like this tabled version because when one reads the product description in Appendix A, you can almost be forgiven for sort of thinking that for every product, there's a quality criteria, because there's one heading and it says quality criteria. Then there's quality tolerance, and there's quality method. When you see it in this tabulated format, it sort of brings home the point that there can be multiple quality criteria. It could be 5 different quality criteria. And for each criteria, there will be an associated tolerance. And for each criteria, there'll be an associated quality method. And for each criteria, an associated quality skill required to execute the method, for example. So seeing it in this tabulated format just kind of brings that home a little bit. Let's follow 1 or 2 of these quality criteria through. You can look at the first one. It says it must comply, or it adheres to corporate quality standards. So the tolerance there is defined in the corporate identity standards. That's fine. Quality method, to check that, is a Prince 2 quality review. Quality skills required, marketing team. Great. No spelling or grammatical errors. Quality tolerance, none. Quality method, spell checker inspection, and quality skills required is a proofreader. So it's a bit of a corny example, but nonetheless it works. So we've created now a product description like this for every product on the product breakdown structure. Now, in real terms, what we can do, and what we're sitting with in our hands here effectively, is a very valuable piece of information, because effectively it's a product specification. And if we were outsourcing the creation of any of these products, it would now give us a standard document that we could send out to a range of suppliers to say, can you please provide us with a quotation, an estimate to deliver this exact product? That way we're getting like for like quotes, and it'll really assist in the selection of an appropriate supplier, and sort of feeds into the procurement process. So we're sitting now with our project product description, the product breakdown structure, and the product descriptions. The product descriptions can be sent away to team managers to start feeding back information about the time it will take to deliver the product and the cost associated, because that time and cost information we use later on in the Prince 2 approach for plans when we build the schedule, and we get the estimates and use the Gantt, or use the product flow diagram to create the schedule. So now we need to decide on the order in which the products are to be created and enter the product flow diagram. Now this is figure D4 in your Prince 2 textbooks if you want to have a look at that. Now, what you can see from this diagram, this now, product flow diagrams we typically read from, again, top to bottom or left to right. And unlike a hierarchical structure, you'll see there's arrowheads here. So there's order implied. It shows us the sequence in which the products are to be created. Whereas with the product breakdown structure, it doesn't give us any of that information. It just says that your project's product is made up of all of these parts. This diagram tells us essentially where to start in order to come out the bottom here. And you'll see on flow diagrams, your exit point now at the bottom becomes your project product. So if we read it from the top, we'll just follow 1 or 2 of these down. So we've got the agreed date, for example, that's external, it pre-existed. So remember, external products created outside the scope of the plan, or they already exist. So that agreed date already existed or was chosen before the project. Once we've got the agreed date in place, we can create a list of venue requirements, and we can create the booking arrangements. Why can we create the venue requirements? Well, one of the venue requirements surely is going to be that it's available on the agreed date. So that's why agreed date needs to be established in advance. Now, with the venue requirements defined, we can come up with a list of candidate venues. That'll be a list of venues that meet the requirements that are available on that date, and so on and so forth. Then we carry out the venue assessments. So there'll be documents created that assess each venue. And then finally, we end up with a selected and booked venue. That will allow us to send the bulk email, but we can't send the bulk email until we have the email list. We can't send the bulk email until we have the booking arrangements finalized, and we can't send the bulk email until the agreed program is in place. So we know that we need to now get to work on the speaker options and so on, because we have to kind of build this flow down. This product flow diagram, when used in conjunction with the estimates that we're going to get back from the team managers of how long everything's going to take and how much it's going to cost is what we will effectively use to create our schedule. Because if we now put a time and cost for each of these products on the product flow diagram, you'll be able to see exactly how much the total cost will be, and you'll be able to see, because of the fact that many of the activities will ultimately be running in parallel with each other, we'll be able to come up with some type of schedule to show how long the project is going to take. And so when we create a product flow diagram, one is it helps us visualize the sequence of events, but two, it's actually an important part in the estimating process because it's used in conjunction with the estimates to help create a schedule and ultimately feed into the project plan, and that information ultimately ends up in the business case, and you see how it all sort of relates to each other. So those are the 4 steps then of product-based planning. Create the project product description, create the product breakdown structure, create product descriptions for every identified product, and finally create the product flow diagram. With regards to the management products, with regards to the plans themselves, there's only one template, if you like. There's only one management product defined as far as the plans are concerned in Appendix A of your book, and that is the plan. Okay, particularly under exam conditions. I've seen so many delegates panic in the exam looking for the project plan or the stage plan or an exception plan in Appendix A. All of the plans in Appendix A are it's just called plan. So remember, it's alphabetical order. You're looking under P for plan, and that template or that product description for the plan covers all different types of plans because the structure of those is the same. So project plan we know is created by the project manager in the initiating a project process. The stage plan created by the project manager in the managing a stage boundary process. The team plan created by the team manager in managing product delivery. And of course, an exception plan, if one is requested, will be created in managing a stage boundary by the project manager. In terms of updating of plans, that's keeping them up to date with actuals and revised forecasts. The project plan is updated by the project manager during the managing a stage boundary process. The stage plan will be updated by the project manager during the controlling a stage process, and the team plan, if necessary or if it's updated, by the team manager in the managing product delivery process. But a plan essentially is a statement of how and when the achievement of objectives can be expected. It shows the major products, it shows the activities required and resources required for the plan. Let's go and have a look at this document now in Appendix A. It's entry A16. Again, the composition of a plan, a description of the plan, a description of what the plan encompasses. Importantly here, deciding whether it's a stage, a project, team plan, exception plan, whatever the case may be. Prerequisites. Now, fundamental aspects that must be in place and remain in place for the plan to succeed. Now, this is something really critical that the plan hinges on. Typically a decision. So if there's a decision that's got to be made in order for the plan to be successful, and that decision must be in place for the life of the stage, if it's a stage plan, for example, then that is what might be covered here. External dependencies, these are products that we are dependent on that come from outside the plan that already exist. They will typically be those external products. Any assumptions that the plan is made on. Remember that all assumptions, or all plans rather, are based on some assumption. And if there's too many assumptions in a plan, then the likelihood of that plan actually being too accurate begins to decrease sort of exponentially with all of the assumptions being made. So we must make it clear to the audience of the plan that this is the plan, these are the assumptions we've based it on, and obviously if any of those don't pan out to be true, then it will obviously have an effect on the plan. So we specify them, we keep them there. The delivery approaches is a description of the approaches to be used. Any lessons that have been incorporated within the plan are defined. Details of how the plan will be monitored, controlled, the budgets for time and cost, including obviously any provision for risk if that's available, and the change budget. Tolerances. Remember that table we looked at in the progress theme that defined where the tolerances are kept? Well, they're in the plan. So it's the project tolerances in the project plan, stage tolerances in the stage plan, and and work package tolerances in the work package. So here it's time and cost as well as scope tolerances for the level of plan. So it would depend on which plan we're looking at. And then product descriptions. Any products to be delivered within the scope of this plan, those product descriptions are part of the plan and they get approved when the plan is approved. Schedule, which may include, like we say, a Gantt or bar chart, and then our charts and diagrams from product-based planning. Product breakdown structure, product flow diagram, an activity network, a table of resource requirements, or a table of requested or assigned specific resources. So that is what the plan looks like. Now, there's much more to a plan than simply a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart is a good visual tool. It's a nice thing to have as part of a plan to provide some visual idea of the flow of the project and to give you an idea of the schedule and so on. But a lot of people, when you say project plan, they say, "Oh, I've got a project plan," and what they really have is a Gantt chart showing a schedule. Consider the information that's in this plan, have a good look at it, and understand the value of it and how it helps ultimately to provide that really strong baseline against which we can assess control. So that leaves us really with only one thing to talk about, and that is the roles and responsibilities related to the plans theme. So we'll go and have a quick look at table 9.1 in the chapter. So again, the most important ones to concentrate here are the project board, the project manager, potentially the team manager here. And let's look at the responsibilities. So the executive approving the project plan, defining tolerances for each stage, approving exception plans when management stage level tolerances are forecast to be exceeded, and committing business resources to the plans. The senior user assists the project manager in preparing stage plans, ensures that the plans and stage plans are consistent for the users from the user's perspective, and will obviously commit user resources to the plans. Same is true for the supplier. They'll commit the supplier resources and ensure that the project plans and stage plans remain consistent from the supplier perspective. Project manager effectively is designing the plans, creating the plans, preparing product breakdown structures, flow diagrams, carrying out all that sort of stuff, and of course preparing exception plans as and when required. Team managers would be preparing team plans and schedules for each work package. Now, project assurance will review any changes to the plans to see whether there's any impact on the needs of the business and the project's business case ultimately. Okay, well, that pretty much wraps it up then for us on the plans theme. Take some time now to review this chapter in the manual along with the practitioner syllabus and make sure that you're comfortable with all of those learning objectives. Have a look at the questions that we've got for you on sample paper 1 in the resource area, and be sure to watch, as we've said before, those rationale videos which will provide you with explanations, some good ideas of how to think your way through the questions, as well as some other learning ideas, if you like, in the answers. Once you've done that, do come back and join me for the very next module.